The first time I saw Emily was on an ordinary Thursday evening at Jake's Coffee House, my unofficial office/hideout. It's where I pretended to work on my laptop while secretly observing humanity over the rim of my coffee cup. That night, I was nursing a caramel macchiato and contemplating whether switching to a pumpkin spice latte would make me lose my self respect when she walked in. She was magnetic. Not in the flashy, head turning way, but in a way that made you want to look twice and then wonder why you couldn't stop. She had this effortless elegance: jeans, a scarf, and hair that caught the dim light just right. Emily, though I didn't know her name yet, ordered a chai latte and sat at a corner table. I should have gone back to my work, which was really just typing random nonsense into a Google Doc, but then it happened. Her eyes met mine. Not the casual, the accidental glance strangers exchange before going back to their lives. This was deliberate. Her gaze lingered, locked onto mine, as if she was daring me to do something, and I, being the epitome of smooth, immediately spilled coffee on my shirt. "Nice going, Tom," I muttered, grabbing a napkin. When I looked back, she was smiling, no smirking. Great, I had officially become a walking rom-com cliché. A few minutes later, I noticed she was still glancing my way. My heart did this weird thing, like it had momentarily forgotten how to function. I decided to take action, or at least that's what I told myself as I walked over to her table, trying to look confident but probably resembling a nervous penguin. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual and failing miserably. "Do you believe in love at first sight, or should I walk by again?" She looked up at me, her lips curling into a smile that was equal parts amused and impressed. "That's bold," she said, tilting her head slightly. "Does that line usually work for you?" "Honestly," I leaned in a little, lowering my voice. "First time trying it? How'd I do?" She laughed, and I swear it was the kind of laugh that could make a bad day disappear. "Well, it's memorable. I'll give you that." I gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Mind if I sit? I promise I won't use any more terrible pickup lines." She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Sure, but only if you tell me what you were really doing over there." I raised an eyebrow. "Really doing?" She smirked again, leaning forward slightly. "Don't play coy. You were staring." Caught red-handed. "All right, guilty as charged, but in my defense, you were staring too." Her cheeks turned the faintest shade of pink. Maybe I was, or maybe I just have a habit of observing the local coffeehouse characters. "Character, huh? I'll take it." I extended my hand. "Tom." "Emily." Her hand was warm, her grip firm but not too strong. For the next hour, we talked about everything and nothing. The odd paintings on the coffeehouse walls, her love for chai lattes, my questionable taste in pickup lines. And when she finally got up to leave, she turned back and said, "See you around, Tom?" As she walked out the door, I realized two things. One, I hadn't finished my coffee. And two, I was already looking forward to the next time I'd see her. The second time I saw Emily, it was trivia night at the Rusty Anchor, a local bar that didn't know whether it wanted to be hipster chic or a dive. I didn't expect to see her there. Truth be told, I hadn't stopped thinking about her since the coffee shop, but I'd chalked up our meeting to a one-time thing. So when she walked in, I froze mid-sip of my beer, nearly choking. She spotted me almost immediately, a spark of recognition lighting up her face. She made her way through the crowd, her scarf trailing behind her like she was some kind of movie star in a noir film. By the time she reached my table, I was still trying to remember how to form words. "Trivia night, huh?" she said, sliding into the chair across from me without waiting for an invitation. "Didn't peg you as the quizmaster type." I blinked. "And what type did you peg me as?" She smirked, folding her hands on the table. "The guy who pretends to work in coffee shops while secretly people-watching." "Guilty," I admitted, raising my glass. "But trivia's kind of my thing. Useless knowledge is a gift." She laughed, that same easy, genuine laugh I remembered from Jake's Coffee House. "Well, Mr. Useless Knowledge, mind if I join your team? I'm terrible at trivia, but I promise to cheer you on." "Deal," I said, trying not to look too eager. As the trivia host started firing off questions, I quickly realized two things. Emily wasn't kidding about being bad at trivia, and she had a knack for making even the dullest questions entertaining. "What's the capital of New Zealand?" the host asked. "Middle Earth," Emily whispered, stifling a giggle. I chuckled. "Close, but not quite." "Wellington," she guessed loudly, then added, "like the boots, right?" Exactly like the boots, I said, grinning. By the second round, our table was covered in napkins, each one scrawled with increasingly ridiculous guesses. Emily kept leaning in to whisper jokes about the questions, her shoulder brushing mine every now and then. Each time it sent a jolt through me, like I'd been struck by a tiny bolt of lightning. Okay, the host announced. Final question for the round. What's the term for a group of flamingos? Emily leaned in close, her voice low. Pretty sure it's a flamboyance, which also describes you in that flannel shirt. I laughed, shaking my head. Touche. And for the record, you're right, it's a flamboyance. The host confirmed her answer, and Emily threw her arms up in mock celebration. See? Useless knowledge pays off. As the night went on, I found myself watching her as much as the trivia board. She had this way of making everyone around her feel at ease, like the world wasn't such a complicated place after all. She laughed easily, often at my jokes, even the bad ones. And when she reached out to tap my arm after one particularly awful pun, I realized just how much I liked the way her laughter sounded. You're fun, Tom, she said as we waited for the final scores to be tallied. And that's not something I say lightly. Well, I aim to impress, I replied, leaning back in my chair. What about you? What's your secret to making trivia night this entertaining? She shrugged, a playful glint in her eyes. Maybe I just like spending time with interesting people. Before I could respond, the trivia host called our team's name. We'd won. Emily cheered louder than anyone else, her hands clapping together in exaggerated applause. As we collected our prize, a Rusty Anchor gift card, I couldn't help but feel like I'd already won something better. As the night wound down, Emily gathered her things and stood to leave. Thanks for letting me crash your team, she said. Same time next week? Only if you promise to bring more terrible guesses, I replied. She grinned. Deal. And just like that, she was gone, leaving me with a gift card, a lingering smile, and the distinct feeling that trivia night would never be the same again. By the time Emily and I met for the third time, something about our connection felt inevitable. It was like the universe had decided, these two? Yeah, let's see what happens. This time, we ran into each other at Arturo's Tacos, a hole-in-the-wall place famous for its mismatched chairs and life-changing guacamole. I was sitting alone at the counter when I heard her voice behind me. Do you always eat alone, or is this just a Thursday thing? I turned to see Emily standing there, holding a tray with 2 tacos and a margarita that looked like it had been made for a giant. Her hair was tied back in a loose braid, and she was wearing a leather jacket that made her look effortlessly cool. I like the solitude, I said with a smirk. Gives me time to reflect on my questionable life choices. She raised an eyebrow. Well, lucky for you, I'm about to ruin your solitude. Scoot over. I shifted my plate and she slid onto the stool next to me, her elbow brushing mine. So, she said, biting into her taco, what's the deal with you, Tom? You've got that guy with a story vibe. A story, huh? I asked, taking a sip of my soda. And what vibe do you have? She pretended to think, tapping her chin. Mysterious girl who keeps bumping into you for no apparent reason. Ah, the coincidence trope, I teased. Classic. Emily laughed, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Seriously, though, what's your deal? Dream job? Weird hobby? Tell me something interesting. I shrugged. All right, dream job, owning a bookstore cafe. Weird hobby, collecting old maps. Your turn. Maps? She asked, her eyebrows shooting up. Are you secretly a pirate? Not yet, I said, grinning, but I'm working on the beard. She chuckled, then took a sip of her margarita. Okay, my turn. Dream job, traveling food critic. Weird hobby, naming stray cats in my neighborhood. There's a fluffy orange one I call Cheeto. Cheeto's a strong name, I said approvingly. Do you ever try to adopt them? She shook her head. Nah, they're street smart. Plus, I'm not home enough. What about you? Any pets? Just the occasional goldfish. They don't judge me when I eat junk food at midnight. She laughed again, and I realized I liked the way her eyes lit up when she found something funny. It wasn't just polite laughter. It was real, warm, and unfiltered. As the conversation continued, I started to notice the little things. She kept fiddling with her earring, a small silver hoop that caught the light every time she touched it. At one point, she adjusted her jacket, pulling it tighter around her shoulders. It wasn't cold in the restaurant, but it was clear she was trying to keep herself composed. You okay? I asked, leaning in slightly. She blinked, startled. What? Yeah, of course. Why? I gestured vaguely. You keep fidgeting? Is it me? Am I intimidating? Her cheeks flushed a faint pink and she laughed nervously. You? Intimidating? That's cute. I'm serious, I said, smiling. If I didn't know better, I'd say you're nervous. She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her grin. Maybe I am, or maybe you're just imagining things. Maybe, I said, leaning back. But if you are, it's kind of flattering. She shook her head, laughing softly. You're impossible, you know that? Impossible, but endearing, I shot back. By the time we finished our tacos, Emily was fully relaxed, her earlier fidgeting replaced with her usual ease. As we walked out of Arturo's, she stopped suddenly, turning to me. Hey, she said, her voice softer now. Thanks for, not being boring. I grinned. Anytime. Same to you. She gave me a small wave before heading off in the opposite direction. As I watched her disappear into the night, I realized something. Emily wasn't just someone I bumped into by chance. She was starting to feel like someone I didn't want to stop bumping into. Saturday morning found me pacing back and forth outside the entrance of the local art fair, clutching 2 tickets in my hand like they were golden keys to another dimension. I wasn't exactly an art guy, but Emily had mentioned loving these fairs, and I figured if it meant spending more time with her, I could pretend to appreciate abstract paintings of fruit bowls. She arrived exactly 7 minutes late, which I only noticed because I'd been nervously checking my watch. When I turned to see her walking up, wearing a loose sundress and carrying a coffee cup, I nearly forgot how to breathe. Sorry I'm late, she said, holding up the coffee. I needed reinforcements. Late night binge watching. What's the show? I asked, handing her the extra ticket. Some true crime thing, she said, rolling her eyes. It's a terrible habit. Makes me think everyone's out to get me. Well, good news, I said, grinning. I'm only guilty of bad puns and spilling coffee on myself. She laughed as we walked through the gates. Fair enough. Let's see if you can survive modern art without making a joke about it. The first exhibit was an installation of random household objects hanging from fishing wire. Emily stared at it with her head tilted, sipping her coffee. So, thoughts? I squinted at the dangling vacuum cleaner and broken toaster. I think someone's attic exploded. She smirked, nudging me with her elbow. No jokes, remember? Right, I said, clearing my throat. It's a metaphor for modern disconnection. Smooth, she said, laughing, but points for trying. As we wandered through the fair, I noticed Emily was quieter than usual. Her typical ease seemed to waver, and every now and then she adjusted her hair or fidgeted with her purse strap. It wasn't like her. You okay? I finally asked as we stopped in front of a sculpture that looked like a giant ball of yarn. She hesitated, biting her lip. Yeah. Why? You seem different. Nervous, maybe? I tilted my head, trying to catch her gaze. Nervous? She repeated, a little too quickly. No way. You're imagining things. Emily, I said, stepping closer, if this is about the giant ball of yarn, I promise it's not judging you. That earned a laugh, but she still wouldn't look at me. It's not the yarn, she muttered. Never mind. Come on, I said, lowering my voice. What's up? You can tell me. She finally turned to face me, her cheeks tinged pink. It's just, you make me nervous, okay? Not in a bad way, but you do. I blinked, caught off guard. Me? Nervous? I didn't think I had that effect on anyone. Well, you do, she said, crossing her arms. And it's really annoying because I'm usually not like this. I couldn't help but smile. For what it's worth, you make me nervous too. Her eyebrows shot up. Really? Yeah, I admitted. I spent 20 minutes Googling how to sound smart about art before coming here. That broke the tension. She laughed, full and loud, and the nervous energy around us seemed to dissolve. Tom, she said, shaking her head, you're ridiculous. Ridiculous, but charming? I offered. She rolled her eyes but smiled. Maybe. As the afternoon went on, Emily relaxed, and we fell into our usual rhythm of banter. We debated whether a painting of a blue square was worth its $10,000 price tag, and she dared me to pronounce the name of a French artist whose name had at least 12 letters. By the time we reached the last exhibit, I felt like I was finally back on solid ground. Thanks for inviting me, she said as we walked out of the fair. This was fun, and not just because you're terrible at art criticism. Well, I aim to entertain, I said. What's next? Interpretive dance? Karaoke? She stopped walking, turning to face me. Actually, I was thinking dinner. My treat. I blinked. Dinner? With me? No, with the giant ball of yarn, she teased, grinning. Of course, with you. Well, I'd be a fool to say no, I said, matching her grin. As we walked down the street together, Emily reached out and took my hand, this time not as a casual brush or a fleeting touch, but deliberately, confidently. It wasn't nervous anymore. It was something else entirely, and it felt like the beginning of something real.